God message today. In the quiet edges of Orleans dusk, as lantern light flickered through the narrow stone streets, a voice brushed against the soul of Solon, the weary scribe who had long wandered through days filled with unanswered questions. The voice did not shout, it moved softly through shadow and stillness, restoring what relentless striving had stolen. Pause, the voice whispered, and remember that your breath is not just survival, it is a signal. I am here in this very moment with you. No hall of kings in Talvire holds more grandeur than a single heartbeat tuned to presence. No cathedral in Lemestra shines brighter than the still gaze of a soul that dares to trust when answers are few. Solon had known both glory and emptiness. He had heard the echo of his own feet in places that felt holy and yet cold. But now the voice came not through grandeur, but through common things. The creak of wood beneath tired feet, the hush before rain, the pause between waking and rising. That was where Elion's presence lived, in the folds of time often overlooked, in the warmth of tea held between trembling hands, in the wind that cooled a fevered face, in the sudden kindness of a stranger at the market gates. You do not need to climb the heights of Aroven to find me, Elion said again and again. I walk beside you while you carry water. I sit with you at the edge of unfinished prayers. Solon recalled the ache that often settled behind his ribs, the restlessness that felt like grief without reason. He had long believed that loneliness proved Elion's absence, but now the truth unraveled like dawn. It wasn't absence, it was a quiet invitation, a reminder to stop straining, to let go of borrowed burdens. There is no depth, no corner of Halemir or hollow of the soul where I do not dwell, Elion spoke into Solon's weariness. When shadows stretch long, I stretch longer. When night lingers, I do not vanish with light, I stay. It was not a brief favor granted when Solon was good or when his mind was clear. It was a covenant, a thread woven into his very breath. Elion was near, even when Solon forgot, even when he broke promises to himself, even when silence felt like abandonment. He stood one morning beside the river Serent, its waters slow and sure. He placed a hand upon his chest and felt the pulse, alive, steady. You are here, he whispered, and the truth landed not in his mind but in his bones. Presence was not earned, it was offered. Fear, once a tyrant, had grown quieter. Doubt still knocked, but it no longer decided. Anxiety lost its throne, because when Solon remembered Elion's closeness, those voices faded into background static, not erased, but no longer in command. And as he continued to walk through markets of noise and obligation, past phases eager with distraction, Solon learned that quiet was not emptiness, it was refuge. It was the space where Elion whispered direction, not demands, but guidance, not condemnation, but invitation. Do not strive to deserve what is already yours. The voice said again in the quiet, let stillness become familiar. Let your body, your breath, your heart find the rhythm of peace I placed inside you. Solon began to carry this awareness into the ordinary. He turned the act of washing a bowl into worship. He tied his shoes slowly, breathing deep. He began to see every mundane moment as a reminder he was not alone. When thunderclouds gathered above the spires of El Darwin and the storms howled, Solon stood, feet planted on trembling ground. And though the storm was real, his roots went deeper. The fear came, but it passed. The storm raged, but did not uproot him. Elion had not promised ease, but he had promised nearness. And in that nearness, Solon discovered a courage that did not shout, it stood, a peace that did not erase pain, but outlasted it, a light that did not blind, but clarified the path one step at a time. The world screamed for attention, offerings of quick relief, even the smallest break, closing his eyes beneath a cypress tree, lingering for 5 extra breaths, opened a gate to Elion's nearness. The silence he once feared became his shelter, and in that shelter he heard, again and again, "You are not alone." One night, as the stars above Kaelwyn blinked in silence, Solon whispered a prayer, not of need, but of thanks, for a presence that had waited patiently through his wandering, for a care that had not tired, for a voice that had remained, even when he had not listened. "I'm here," Elian whispered once more, "and I always will be." And that was enough, the whisper in the stillness. Narrated by Archangel Maelor in the realm of Talora, child of the eternal flame. Pause. Not tomorrow, not when the chaos stills or when clarity conveniently arrives. Pause now. Let go of the rush that clings to your chest like tied iron. Let go of the hurried thoughts, of the comparison, of the racing need to understand everything at once. Your stillness is not wasted time, it is the doorway. In Thalora, we call it the crossing quiet, the place where divine currents swirl through silence, unblocking what fear has frozen. Melor speaks, not with thunder this time, but with breath, softer than wind through new leaves. Let the silence teach you what noise never could. At first, the hush might be jarring. The mind, untethered from distraction, may panic. Doubts will rise like a tide. You're falling behind. You need answers now. You should be doing more. But I am there, in that ache, in that breath. You weren't created to carry the universe's weight. You were sculpted from divine care, not to perform, but to align. You are not alone in this space. My feet walk beside yours. My hand steadies your trembling spirit. Even here, in your perceived weakness, heaven surrounds you like a canopy of unseen stars. This silence is not an absence, it is my presence. When you choose stillness, even 5 minutes with a steady breath and a surrendered heart, you make space for something more powerful than human striving: alignment. In that space, I begin to breathe into what's weary. The people of Kerala once believed storms were anger from the gods until they learned to sit in the center and listen. That's where revelation came, not from noise, but from surrender. So now I ask, sit, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally willing to let me lift the weight. Let your breath be a prayer. Let each exhale carry worry far away. Let each inhale pull in strength that didn't come from you. You have spent too many seasons fighting shadows alone. I have watched. You strategized. You planned. You strained every nerve to remain composed. But, beloved, peace was never earned through effort. It was gifted through presence. Do you feel that ache in your shoulders? That tightness behind your eyes? That hidden weariness? I see it all. I always have. You've smiled through pain. You've kept moving when your soul screamed for rest. I do not overlook that kind of bravery, but you were never meant to survive alone. In the gardens of old Eleni, prophets learned not by words, but by watching how vines grew in silence, reaching without striving, receiving light, not chasing it. You are invited into the same rhythm, not of escape, but of realignment. The fog that clouds your next step will lift when you enter this quiet. You say, but I don't hear anything. Yet I say, listen not with your ears, but with your spirit. My voice is not always thunder. Sometimes it is memory. Sometimes it is warmth behind your ribs. Sometimes it is the thought that arrives gentle but persistent. In silence, I plant those seeds. And soon things begin to shift. You begin to walk differently. Decisions grow less frantic. Gratitude rises for small things, not because life suddenly got easier, but because the noise isn't steering anymore. You say, but I've tried this before. Yet I say, try again. Stillness is a practice, not a perform. Every time you sit and say, here I am, I meet you there. Every time you say, I don't know what to do, I whisper, that's where I begin. My presence is not a reward for perfection. It is a constant even in your wandering. You fear your pain disqualifies you from closeness. But I tell you plainly, pain is not your identity. It is a signal that something mattered deeply, and I hold that pain not to judge, but to heal. You've hidden your weariness, child, but I've seen every silent cry. I do not need your mask. I desire your realness. Place your wounds in my hands. Let me show you they do not define your future. In the sacred groves of Viraya, the healers would whisper this blessing over the broken. May the wound not be erased, but transformed into a window. Let that be true for you. When trust feels dangerous because others have failed you, remember, I do not abandon. I do not betray. I do not break what is offered honestly. My love is taller than the tallest cliff you've ever climbed, and deeper than the pain that still echoes. Rest. Not because you earned it, but because it's your birthright as a soul shaped by my breath. And when you rest, true healing begins. Not the kind that hides scars, but the kind that reclaims them into testimonies. You will speak to others not with heavy advice, but with a presence that says, I've walked through fire and found calm. You will become a lighthouse not because you always knew the way, but because you stood still long enough to receive the map. You say, but I'm still confused. I say, confusion is not failure. It is the soil from which deeper wisdom grows. Answers will come, maybe not instantly but steadily. And when they come, they won't just inform you, they will transform you. Even today, as you pause to sip water or rest your eyes, you choose me. That choice sends ripples into your entire life. The burdens that once seemed immovable, they begin to shift, not because you pushed harder, but because I began to lift. The empty places inside you, once filled with fear, now begin to fill with something else. Peace that doesn't depend on what happens next. You say, but what if I fail again? I say, failure is not final in my hands. I do not measure your value by outcomes. I measure it by your willingness to remain open. And right now, your openness stirs heaven. So lean in, just as you are, with your uncertainty, with your bruised heart. Let go of needing all the answers. Trust the one who already walks the entire road. Even if you feel like you're crawling, every inch forward is progress. Even the quiet sigh of surrender is a victory. You will not stay lost. You will not stay weary. The winds are shifting. The light is returning. Your breath deepens. Your spirit lifts. This isn't the end. This is the invitation. Enter the stillness. Stay long enough for peace to become familiar. Stay long enough for fear to lose its hold. Stay long enough to remember, I am here, always have been, always will be, and I will never stop guiding you toward the wholeness that has always been your birthright. Type yes if you believe in odd type 1111 if you believe in God.